The two main things that affect your credit score, late payments and when you have too much debt against your available debt. If you have 3 credit cards, each with, say, I'll make it up, $3,000 of credit, so total of $9,000, and you've got debt against that $9,000 of $8,000, that's going to hurt your credit score. But if you only have debt of, say, $3,000 against that $9,000, okay, that's reasonable. Yes?
Now, what about if you have a credit card and you plan to close that credit card? Because I had 2 visas, like I had a lot of credit cards, and I planned to, you know, get rid of my debt and close them, not realizing that it dropped my credit score.
Yeah, because the question, I don't know if everybody could hear, if you have a couple credit cards or maybe just one you want to close and you close it, what's going to happen? It's going to hurt your credit score. Why? Because just what I was saying, with a credit card, that's available borrowing power. You know, if it has a credit limit of $3,000 and you close it, you just reduced your available borrowing power by $3,000, and so what they call your debt to available credit or available debt ratio increased, and the FICO, the credit scoring people, don't like that. So when you close a credit card, it's better not to use a credit card than to close it. Just put it in a refrigerator or something.
I've heard different things too in relation to that. I heard it's just as bad if you have available credit that you're not using it, that a lender may say, well, if we give her this loan, how do I know that she's not going to go splurge and spend all this excess credit that she has available?
You know, I have never heard that. FICO, you can go on this website called myfico.com, and they give you the criteria for your FICO score. And the only thing I have ever read is that if you have too much debt against available debt, they get nervous. Let's not linger for too much longer on credit cards, because we've got 4 or 5 more principles to talk about. I got to check my notes. I got so excited about credit cards. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about risk reward. How many of you have ever thought about working for yourself, being an entrepreneur? Okay. I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I think I have, so that's all my business life, I should say. So I'd say that's about 30 years of being an entrepreneur. How many of you not just have thought about it, but actually are in some kind of business for yourself? Wow, great. Exciting. The great wealth in this country has been produced by entrepreneurs. And these are people who generally take risk. These are people who have an idea, who have a passion for something, and they want to run their own business. Now, I'm not going to advocate being an entrepreneur because not everybody's right to be an entrepreneur. Some people do better with risk than others. I can sleep at night with risk. It's my wife who doesn't sleep so well with my risk. But some people don't sleep well with it. But those who can sleep at night with risk, I want to tell you about being an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. First of all, I read a lot of studies. See if you would agree with this. The happiest people, and I actually brought this study with me, and if anybody wants a copy, I could probably get it for you. The happiest people who are those who in their business life are in control of their destiny. So when you work for somebody, maybe they're a wonderful boss, but you still can't quite do things the way you want them. And maybe they're not such a wonderful boss. But this survey surveyed thousands of people and found out that the happiest people are people who are in control of their destiny, and concluded, and you may or may not agree with this, not everybody agrees with this, that entrepreneurs are generally happier people because, for better or for worse, they're in control of their own destiny. And this is all about risk reward. And risk reward, if you're going to be the CFO of U Inc., you got to have a good understanding of risk reward. If you take more risk, there's more potential reward. It's that simple. And it's in everything you do. It's in how you save and use your money. If you have $1,000 to invest, you can put it in a savings account, totally risk-free. No risk. You know what your return is? Almost nothing. Pennies. You can put it in a CD, maybe for 5 years. You're taking more risk. Why? Because you've given away the power and control of your money for 5 years. You're going to get a better reward, a higher interest rate. You can put it in a bond, a savings bond or government bond. You'll get a little higher interest rate if it's longer term than a CD. Why? Because the longer you commit your money to somebody else, the more risk you're taking. In some bonds, unlike a government bond, you may or may not get your money back. More risk, more reward. You can put your money in a common stock. Common stocks are more generally considered riskier than bonds. More risk, more reward. You can start your own business. You want to talk about risk? That's the most risk, also the most reward. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, I can tell you what you need to be prepared for. Because I've started 15 businesses, one of which, I have a nice story. I started a little kid shoe company about 8 years ago. A buddy and I, we created this little kid shoe company. We made shoes online, and we sold them only online. We didn't want to sell them in stores because we didn't have enough capital or manpower to have a big distribution into stores, a big wholesale count, and we didn't want to start our own store. So we had this idea: let's just sell them online. So we create this kid shoe company, and we're selling them only online. And that's hard to do because young parents, some of you may know or have kids, you like to feel the shoes, you like to touch them, but our shoes you could only buy online. So we never really made so much money, but we were having fun, and we learned a lot about selling shoes online. This was before Zappos started selling shoes. This is before Amazon started selling shoes. We were kind of doing stuff that nobody else was doing. And then 2 years ago, an adult shoe company came to us and said, you know, you guys are getting pretty good at selling shoes online. Would you take over our adult shoe brand and sell it online? So with no money invested, because we'd been just doing this anyway, we did the same thing for this company that we'd been doing with our little adult shoes. A year later, they came to us and they said, wow, you guys are pretty good at selling shoes online. We don't want you working for any of our competitors. And they basically gave us $8.5 million to just stop doing the business, which is what we did. Now that's a fluke. That's a once in a lifetime. You know, they basically said, just don't work for anybody else, give us back the business, and we give you $8.5 million. But there was a risk reward. That goes back to 8 years of selling kid shoes online, a lot of hard work, a lot of sweat equity. Those happen, those stories happen. You know, when you're an entrepreneur, especially when you start by yourself, you're the only one there, and you're doing everything. You know, you're cleaning the bathrooms, you're answering the phones, you're doing the copying, you're doing whatever it takes. So it's not easy to be an entrepreneur, but it is also thrilling to be an entrepreneur. When you have something exciting happen, when your product starts to get some attention, when your service starts to get talked about, when people start hearing about what you're doing and calling you, hey, could you help me? When you do something for somebody that helps them, there's a thrill, there's an excitement to it. The life of an entrepreneur, I tell this story. I grew up in a little town in Ohio. Anybody ever heard of Sandusky, Ohio? Holy cow. How did you ever hear of Sandusky, Ohio? I lived in Cleveland. You lived in Cleveland. Did you ever hear of a place called Cedar Point? Of course. Am I telling the truth? Is Cedar Point the roller coaster capital of the Midwest? Cedar Point it's this little, I grew up in this little tiny town, Ohio, and all it has is this big amusement park with all these gigantic roller coasters. So when you grow up in a town with roller coasters, you can't wait for the summer, and then all you do is ride these roller coasters. All right, now you got to look at me. So this is what I did every summer of my life, preparing me to be an entrepreneur. And that's what it's like, a roller coaster. All right, so there's some thrills that are just wonderful. And some days you have an if you get really, really lucky, you have an $8 million payday, which is maybe once a lifetime, but at least you're in the game. At least you're in action. I haven't covered all my points. I wanted to talk a little bit about insurance, a little bit about law, but I'm going to give you a handout that will cover these items. I want to close actually with one more thing that I think is so important when we talk about adding value to you, Inc. And I want you to fill in this blank. When I've asked super successful people what they would recommend, how do you get wealthy in life? Do the blank.